The review of this equipment is motivated by the fact that when drilling holes, I personally find it very difficult to get them at 90 degrees, and this is one way of being able to do it. When I looked at what was available, there was a number of things available, and I bought this one because I know with Axminster I can take things back to a shop if need be, but certainly get things returned if they don't work very well. And it's certainly got mixed reviews. Well, what were people complaining about? Well, the things they were complaining about was that these screws here weren't very good and didn't work properly, and the other thing was that it wasn't solid. There's two ways of making it solid. One is to actually set it up correctly at the beginning, and the second thing is to maybe put it on a base plate, which is what I did, which gives it a more solid surface, and you can then clamp it to things so it won't move. It's got this fitment here which allows you to put circular components in and locate them reasonably accurately, although I personally haven't used it. The other thing people were complaining about was that it didn't work with their drill. Well, I think if you look at the specifications for it, it quite clearly states that it's for, if I remember rightly, it's 43mm hole for your drill. Now I've got an old cable drill here, and you can see that fits in quite nicely, and you can tighten it up with the Allen key which actually comes with the equipment. Now you can imagine that this probably you would think wouldn't be too stable, but in fact it's not a problem, and I'll explain what I think the issue was. People that were finding that it rocks rather a lot, and the issue is that these posts here are held in place by these two screws, and you need to make sure that they're not proud of this bit here. So if we loosen that and just push this one down a little bit like that, you can see that it then starts to rock. So it is really very important to make sure that these are not proud, and then lock them in position. Now when you looked at this on the web, it looked like it was made of plastic, and in fact it's not. The only plastic bits of it here is a bit of this handle here and the ends of these screws. The base is metal, the posts are metal, this clamp here is metal, and these little end pieces here are plastic. So it's actually quite a solid construction, and really is quite stable. I personally, the way I'm using it, have not used this handle, but this handle can be used to hold it solid. And people might want to use this as a normal drill. And you might want to screw it down onto a surface and keep it in position, and then it'll go up and down. And that seems to work pretty well. So that's how the system works. You may be tempted to think, well, I've got a battery drill or whatever, I'll use that. Well, in this particular case we'd be clamping it onto the actual chuck itself. So this is just not designed for these type of drills. If it hasn't got this 43, I think it is, millimeter diameter place for clamping typically a handle onto, then this drill press is not appropriate for the drill that you've got. So you can get a drill like see at Axminster that costs considerably more than this. This was about £20. What they consist of is a chuck down here on a bearing with a spindle up here, and the drill fits on top. And actually you lock the chuck of the drill onto the spindle, and that allows you to use any other drills that you want. So that's the general layout of it. It's much better constructed than it looks on the web. It's mainly metal rather than plastics. It seems to be very solid. People have said it isn't, but that's not moving in the slightest. And when you pop the drill in, which is pretty heavy, you don't see any movement there at all. You need to clamp it up with the iron key just to get it solid. Now it is also possible to use this as just a normal drill. You just leave it like this the whole time, with this screwed directly down to your bench so it doesn't move. So how well does it work? Right, let's remove the dowel and actually show the press in operation. You can see the distance is set up as indicated, and pop that in position and then clamp it up, which I think is always a good idea. That is clamped in position, so that's held so that it isn't going to move. The next stage is just to drill it out. This wobble that you see here is actually wood, not the press itself. So let's just start the drill. And clamp it. And here's the hole that we drilled. There's the dowel, and it's a lot more vertical than would have been the case. So there you have it. Well, to finish with some conclusions and recommendations.
The disadvantage of this particular piece of equipment is that it only fits drills with this 42 to 43mm fitting. That is a limitation for it. The performance of it can be improved by adding a wooden base, shown that, and the drill itself is mainly made from metal, and certainly looks like it delivers a good rigid platform for drilling holes. We've demonstrated drilling 90-degree holes successfully. It can also be used for angled holes, but it is awkward to set up and the wooden base needs to be removed to do that, which is a bit of a disadvantage. So overall, I think it thoroughly deserves its 4-star rating. It's a good piece of equipment if you want to drill 90-degree holes and you've got the right fitting on your drill.
It's perhaps helpful just to try and make sure that this is square to the base, which just makes it a little bit easier when you're using it. So we'll just tighten the screws up. If you have some bolts you could use here, just recess them from the back. That's probably a better way to hold it, but this is now absolutely rock solid. It doesn't move in the slightest at all. The nice thing is that you can, if you wish, you want to put a row of holes in that are a certain distance from the edge, you could use a clamp this in position so that you can slide this along to wherever you want and then drill the hole like that. I would suggest that probably if you're doing any large jobs it would be a good idea to put some slots in here so that you could actually screw it tight so that it doesn't move at all. But certainly people have recommended that you can clamp it like that. So using it like that, it seems to work very well. I've really got no complaints about it at all. It's probably worthwhile just putting together this base with the guide on the bottom. You can clamp these together, but I think it's better if we actually screw them, because then we know that they're going to stay in position. Okay, there's the screw in position. We want to really make sure that when this goes across here like that it's all nice and square. So making sure that the clamp, screw that up tight. It is indeed square. See how that's worked. Looks pretty good. And the thing that we would want to now do is just pop another screw in there to make sure that that doesn't shift.